Lord. Like he's so the Lord is so awesome.
This morning I want to ask you a question is, what are you believing for? And what are you believing for in your own life? Okay? And a lot of us are believing for different things because we all have different walks and God has called us to do different things, right? So I'm not called to be this and I'm not called to do that. I'm called to do certain things in my life, and you have a different calling in your life, which is not exactly what I've been called to do or you've been called to do. So, what are you believing for? In Genesis, we find in Genesis 37, verses 5 through 11, we find the story of Joseph, and Joseph has a dream. And Joseph has a dream, and what does he do with this dream? He tells his brothers, and he tells his father. And what do? They get upset. Then he has a second dream, that the sun and the moon are going to bow down before them. In other words, you guys, my brothers and my dad, they're going to bow down before me. And they're like, how dare you tell us this? How dare you tell us that we're going to, bow down before you? Now, Joseph had a dream, 2 dreams. Did those 2 dreams come to pass right away? No. It took years later. It took the fact that their brothers, when he told them that, the Bible says that they kept it in their spirit, in their minds. They never forgot what Joseph told them about the 2 dreams. So what did they do? They were jealous, right? So what did they do to Joseph? You know the story. They sold him, right? Yep. They sold him as a slave. Then all of a sudden, they sold him into Potiphar's house. Then in Potiphar's house, guess what? His wife went after him. He's a handsome guy. Hey. His wife went after him, says, hey, he came after me and he wanted to rape me, right? Put him in jail. Then he's with the cupbearer and the baker, right? And they have a vision and they have a dream, and he interprets the dream. One dies, the other one lives and goes back. And then all of a sudden, he interprets the dream for Pharaoh. He becomes second in command in Egypt. And who comes asking for help? The brothers, but they did not recognize who Joseph was, right? But yet Joseph recognized his brothers. And eventually, what did his brothers have to do and his dad? Bow down before him. But it took all those years for this to happen in his life, right? And so Joseph, the dreamer, which they call him, had these dreams when he was younger. Then it took all this span in order for him to get to where God was calling him to be. So behind the scenes, I believe that God is working all the time. God is always working behind the scenes. The problem is that we don't see God working behind the scenes, right? Like, I think when we look at movies, sometimes you want to look at behind the scenes and you don't see that everything that goes on before you actually, I don't know anything about movies, but my son does. But everything that goes on behind movies, as far as the blue screen or green screen or whatever they're called, and then, they do all this stuff just to get this one shot, right? And it takes all this to get that. Can you imagine what God is doing behind the scenes for your life? All the stuff that he's putting together, and then you can't get through to me because, God's trying to speak to us, but we're so caught up in everything in our daily routine, and we're caught up in all the problems that we have, and we're caught up in, and whether we got to do this, whether we got to do that. And then all that caught up in our lives, guess what? Distract us from when God is speaking to us, and he's trying to put all this stuff together, yet God is always working, and we're not. Amen. We're the ones that stop moving. We're the ones that stop moving forward. And we're the ones that stop ourselves from moving forward, And a lot of times God is giving us dreams, maybe not just one dream, maybe 2 dreams, maybe a couple of dreams. And we're like, and we just give up on the dream. Why? Because we don't see it right away, And I always say, you go through the drive-thru, what do they want to do? They want to give you the fast food, right? Do you see how fast you can go through a Chick-fil-A line? Yeah. It's incredible that the fries are ready and the nuggets are ready. Everything is ready. You go through McDonald's, It's like bam, bam, bam. Everything's like fast food. And that's how we want our dreams to be. Fast food. quick. And it doesn't always work out like that, you know? A lot of times it takes time. And it stops, and we stop moving. God is on the move always, you know? When life tends to push us down, because it does, life always pushes us down, you know? That passion that we have, that desire that we have, that push that we have, guess what? It leaves us. It does leave us, you know? Yesterday I was at Home Depot. It rained on me. I was by myself. The boys were somewhere else, and they got home earlier than I did. I was like, they can't get home earlier than I could. I'm still at Home Depot in Kendall. It poured on me. I left everything on the roof. I hid stuff inside the air conditioning units. I ran downstairs. I went back up. I started cleaning again. It poured on me again. I went downstairs, and I was frustrated. You know how I get frustrated, right? I'm like, oh, you think this is me happy? I'm like, I want to get this done. 3 hours, I'm out of here. It never works. And then my wife is like, see, it's not 3 hours. It's like 5 hours, 8 hours. And here I am, frustrated, and I'm walking through the roofing aisle. And this man is talking to this young kid who's telling him how to put this certain paper on a roof. And I walk by, and the Lord speaks to me again like it's night and day. See, God is always speaking. We just have to let go of your frustrations. Let go of your anger. Let go of this. And I'm just walking, and I'm like, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to call Barb. I'm coming home. I'm done. I'll come back Monday. And God speaks to me and says, turn around and go help that man. What am I going to help him with? I turn around. I introduce myself. I say, hey, my name is Juan. I'm a roofing contractor. And I overheard your conversation with this kid who works at Home Depot. And he's not giving you the right information. So I stand there, and I talk to Mario, find out his name. I give him my name. I give him my card. He gives me his card. Well, that's later on. And I tell him exactly what the process is. I tell him to put that stuff back, get this other stuff. Long story short, at the end, he says, oh, do you know that I work for an elderly home complex where you buy a condo, very rich people. They buy the condos, and they live there, and they cook for them, they clean for them, they do everything for them, okay? And he goes, we can use your services. I said, okay. He goes, look, this is my boss's card, and you have a card? I gave him my card. I went to the truck, I gave him my card. He goes, call him on Monday. I'll let him know that I met you and who you are. You see how God works? Yeah. Out of simple obedience, God can open up a door that you would never even see open. Amen. You would never see that door open unless you take, if you're in a rush and God tells you, or you're angry like I was, and then God speaks to you, and out of that anger, you're like, that's not God, that's just, and you just keep walking. I could have kept walking, but I could have missed my blessing, and I could have missed blessing this gentleman and stopping him from buying all this stuff that he doesn't need. So I was not only a blessing to him, he was a blessing to me. Because I'm about to make that phone call in the morning, for 2,500 units. So God has a funny way of just showing up at the right time. Yes. Always shows up at the right time. We just have to be listening. But we're not always listening, Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 4 says this. You don't have to turn there. You can write it down. 20 verse 4 says, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you what? Victory. To give you victory. God is always fighting against my enemies to give me victory. And even against myself, because sometimes we're our own enemies. With our frustration and our anger and our everything that's going on in our minds. And God is always speaking, and God is always there. And the enemy of our mind is like the worst thing, because we just come up with all this stuff that we don't need to come up with. And God is like, what are you worried about, So, time to dream again. Time to believe again, We try and nothing is happening. Why is nothing happening? Because we try. Remember the word we, I, me, myself, and I. If I do this, if I do that, if I can put this thing together, then who gets the glory? You do. God doesn't want you to get the glory. He wants to get the glory. Okay? He wants to be the one that puts all this stuff together. And he's putting it all together. Okay? The seed is still alive. When you plant the seed, does it grow? I'm not good. If I plant a seed, it'll probably die, because all our plants die. All we got is weeds everywhere. If I plant, tell me, I have 3 plants in the front that I bought at Home Depot, and I look to see if they're from the, if they last in the desert, if they last, with no water. So look, they're still alive. They're like 3 months old. They're alive, 0 maintenance. But if I put a seed in the ground, it takes time to grow, right? Yep. If I plant an oak tree, it takes a long time for these oak trees. We got these beautiful oak trees in this neighborhood. We're not allowed to touch them, but they're beautiful oak trees. But how long did it take for them to grow? How long will it take our dream to come through? As long as it takes. But we're not patient to wait for the dream. We're not patient. If you plant a seed, sometimes it takes a while. Chapter 11, the book of John, capítulo 11 de Juan. Chapter 11. Lazarus is sick. John, chapter 11. Wow, this just came out like from nowhere. I was like, Lord, wow. Here, Lazarus was sick. Verse 1. Verse 6. Jesus delays 2 days. Okay? They tell him to come right away, right? They tell Jesus, come right away because Lazarus is dead. Well, Lazarus is sick. Okay? Come. I'm not coming yet. He's going to delay. Why are you delaying, Lord? Verses 11 and 14. Lazarus, Jesus says, verses 11 and 14 through 14. Lazarus, Jesus said, has fallen asleep. So Jesus says what? Jesus says, wait, Lazarus is falling asleep. No. He's not asleep. He's dead. Have you ever been to a funeral? Dead, right? They're dead. No, he's sleeping. Lazarus is sleeping. And this just came out of the pages like what? This is what God spoke to me. What looks dead like Lazarus is only asleep. So the dreams that God has placed in us, they're only sleeping. They're not dead. They're not buried 6 feet under. They're asleep. Because Jesus says something very significant. He says, Lazarus is asleep. Now, everybody else is saying Lazarus is dead. But Jesus said Lazarus is asleep. There's a big difference between you sleeping and you dead. You sleeping, you'll wake up the next morning, right? Or you fall asleep on that lounge chair there, and you'll wake up eventually like I do. But when you dead, you ain't getting up out of that chair. Yeah. So Lazarus is only asleep. And Jesus says he's asleep. But everybody else, I would say, you dead. He's dead. Martha said, he's dead. Mary said, he's dead. So here, the seed is still alive. In other words, Lazarus is not dead. He's still alive. What looks like death, Jesus says it's only asleep. You understand that? Did you get that? So that means that my dream is only asleep, and it needs to be awakened. Yes. So that to me is like, wow, Lord, I'm so glad that my dreams are not dead. Your dreams are not dead. They're just sleeping for a moment, for a while, and they're going to wake up. And when God is all ready and Jesus is all ready to wake him up, let me tell you, when he wakes him up, you better be ready. You better put your seatbelt on, okay? Because he's taking you for a ride. And when he takes you for a ride, it ain't like no other ride, okay? So he shows up after Lazarus has been in the tomb for how many days? 4 days. Here's Lazarus, 4 days in the tomb, okay? Martha, okay, Lazarus' sister, says, he stinks, okay? He stinks. Okay, that's what the Bible says. He stunk. And Jesus says, roll away the stone. No, Jesus, he stinks. Don't roll away the stone. But he's only asleep. He's only asleep. No, he's not. He's dead. No, he's only sleeping. So in verse 41, they take the stone away. In verse 43, Lazarus comes out from his sleep. It ain't over until, not the fat lady saying, it ain't over until God says it's over.